Dale Earnhardt Sr. is one of the best to ever drive in NASCAR. His fatal accident in 2001 changed NASCAR racing forever. At that time, Earnhardt was racing in the number 3 car, owned by Richard Childress Racing. In a recent interview, Richard Childress himself opened up about the accident and explained how he wished he could have saved Dale's life with just 3 words. Dale Earnhardt Sr. drove for RCR from 1986 to 2001. During this time, Dale won 6 Winston Cup Series championships, which is now called the Cup Series Championship. During the late 90s, Dale's performances started to deteriorate. It was at this time he was considering retirement. However, Richard Childress convinced him otherwise and stated that the problem was with the car and not his driving. Recently, Childress stated how he wished he had said otherwise. "You know, 98, we won the Daytona 500, and about halfway through the year, we wasn't running good. I changed crew chiefs and got the car a little better. But he said, 'Man, it's me.' I said, 'It ain't there. We're not giving you cars. You can drive. We've got to fix the cars.' And I wish now to say, yeah, it was you go retire." If Dale had retired right then and there, he would have never taken part in the 2001 Daytona 500, and he would still be alive now. But this is something nobody could have ever predicted. Childress could not have seen the accident coming, even at the start of that fateful day. Dale Earnhardt's crash was nothing but an accident. It could have happened to anyone. Dale Earnhardt's fatal accident on February 18, 2001, during the final lap of the Daytona 500, is one of the most tragic and pivotal moments in NASCAR history. Known as the Intimidator, Earnhardt was a 7-time NASCAR Winston Cup Series champion and one of the sport's most iconic and respected drivers. His death shocked the motorsports world and led to sweeping changes in NASCAR safety standards. The crash occurred on the last turn of the final lap in the 2001 Daytona 500 at Daytona International Speedway. Earnhardt was running in 3rd place, behind his drivers Michael Waltrip and Dale Earnhardt Jr. as they battled for the win. Heading into turn 4, Earnhardt's car made contact with Sterling Marlin's car, which caused him to veer up the track. As Earnhardt's car slid up, it collided with Ken Schrader's car, and both cars shot into the outside wall at around 160 miles per hour. Earnhardt's black number 3 Chevrolet hit the wall at a sharp angle, with the front end taking the full force of the impact. The car bounced off the wall and came to a rest in the infield, with Schrader's car beside it. Schrader quickly exited his car and went to check on Earnhardt, but he signaled for help upon realizing the severity of the situation. Dale Earnhardt suffered a basilar skull fracture, which was ultimately determined to be the cause of his death. A basilar skull fracture is a fatal injury to the base of the skull that occurs when the head is subjected to extreme forces, causing fatal damage to the brainstem. Earnhardt had not been wearing a head and neck support or HANDS device, which was not mandatory at the time, but was recommended for reducing the risk of such injuries. Despite the quick response of medical personnel, Earnhardt was pronounced dead shortly after the crash at Halifax Medical Center in Daytona Beach. Earnhardt's death sent shockwaves through the NASCAR community and the broader sports world. Fans, drivers, and officials mourned the loss of a legend. Earnhardt's passing, however, became a turning point for safety in NASCAR, prompting the sport to reevaluate its safety measures and implement major changes to protect drivers in the future. In the wake of Earnhardt's fatal crash, NASCAR undertook significant reforms, many of which were aimed at preventing the type of injury that killed him. NASCAR quickly mandated the use of head and neck support, also called the HANDS device, for all drivers. This device helps prevent basilar skull fractures by restraining the driver's head and limiting the violent forward movement that occurs in crashes. Dale Earnhardt's death, while tragic, resulted in life-saving advancements that reshaped the sport. His legacy endures not only through his incredible accomplishments on the track, but also in the safety improvements that have since protected countless drivers. The number 3 car became an iconic symbol of Earnhardt's career, and his memory remains a central part of NASCAR's history. The impact of his accident marked the end of an era, but ultimately led to a safer future for the sport. Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s legacy in NASCAR is immense and enduring. Known as the Intimidator for his aggressive driving style and fearless approach on the track, Earnhardt's contributions to NASCAR are far-reaching, making him one of the most iconic and influential figures in the history of the sport. His legacy is marked by both his dominance as a driver and the cultural impact he left on the sport, long after his untimely death in 2001. Earnhardt was also one of the most successful drivers in NASCAR history. Over the course of his career, he won 76 races in the NASCAR Cup Series, including the Daytona 500 in 1998, a victory that had long eluded him. He also claimed 7 NASCAR Cup Series championships, tied for the most with Richard Petty and Jimmy Johnson, securing his status as one of the all-time greats. His aggressive, hard-nosed style, combined with his ability to dominate on tracks of all types, from super speedways to short tracks, earned him a fearsome reputation. Earnhardt's first NASCAR Cup Series victory came in 1979 at Bristol Motor Speedway, and his career quickly ascended from there. He won championships across 2 different decades, from 1980 to 1994, showing remarkable longevity and adaptability. Earnhardt earned the nickname The Intimidator because of his aggressive driving style and his intimidating presence on the racetrack. He wasn't afraid to move other drivers out of his way, often using the bump-and-run technique to gain positions. His black No. 3 Chevrolet, sponsored by Goodwrench, became one of the most recognizable cars in the sport, and his image as a fierce competitor made him a fan favorite. He embodied the old-school, no-nonsense spirit of racing, and fans loved him for it. Earnhardt's rivalries with other drivers, such as Jeff Gordon, Terry Labonte, and Darrell Waltrip, helped fuel some of the most exciting and memorable races in NASCAR history. Despite his intimidating on-track persona, off the track Earnhardt was known to be personable and generous, and he developed one of the largest and most loyal fan bases in NASCAR. Earnhardt wasn't just a driver, he was a cultural icon. For many fans, especially in the American South, he represented the everyman, someone who came from humble beginnings and rose to the top of his field through hard work, determination, and raw talent. His death in the 2001 Daytona 500 cemented his status as a legend, and his impact on the sports culture is still felt today. The No. 3 car became synonymous with Earnhardt's legacy, and its presence remained sacred in NASCAR. For years after his death, it was largely retired from the Cup Series until it was brought back in 2014 with Austin Dillon, Richard Childress' grandson, behind the wheel. Earnhardt fans, sometimes referred to as Earnhardt Nation, remain some of the most passionate in the sport. His popularity extended far beyond racing enthusiasts, with his likeness appearing in various forms of media, merchandise, and popular culture. Earnhardt's influence on NASCAR's growth in the late 20th century cannot be overstated. He was one of the key figures who helped take NASCAR from a regional, southern sport to a national powerhouse, attracting a broader and more diverse fan base. His on-track success and his larger-than-life personality made him the perfect ambassador for the sport during a period of expansion. The rise of NASCAR's popularity on television during the 1990s coincided with Earnhardt's prime. He was a key figure in making the sport more marketable to sponsors and TV audiences alike. Dale Earnhardt Sr. also played a role in shaping the careers of future NASCAR stars. He formed Dale Earnhardt Inc., or DEI, a successful racing team that fielded competitive cars for drivers like his son, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Michael Waltrip. DEI played a major role in the sport, especially during the early 2000s. Earnhardt's image as a tough, determined, and relentless competitor continues to define NASCAR's spirit. His legacy lives on not only through his son, Dale Earnhardt Jr., who became a superstar in his own right, but also through the fans who continue to revere him. The No. 3 remains one of the most iconic symbols in motorsports, and many current drivers cite Earnhardt as a major influence on their careers. Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s legacy in NASCAR transcends his accomplishments on the track. He was a transformative figure who helped elevate the sport to new heights, both in terms of competition and popularity. His death, though tragic, brought about critical safety changes that have since saved lives. More than 2 decades after his passing, Earnhardt remains a revered figure, a symbol of toughness, resilience, and excellence in NASCAR, and his legacy is firmly embedded in the sport's history. Ever since Dale Earnhardt passed away, no driver has been able to win a Cup Series championship with Richard Childress Racing. Today, RCR has Austin Dillon, the grandson of Richard Childress, driving the No. 3 car. It's more than fair to say that Dillon is absolutely ruining the legacy of that iconic number. Dillon is considered to be the most hated driver in NASCAR. His racing is completely unsportsmanlike and dangerous for everyone on the grid. Richard Childress Racing is now looking to bounce back to its glory days, but in order to do so, they will need to make some serious changes within the team. They need to put a driver who is deserving of the No. 3 number. Dale Earnhardt Sr. is among the greatest of all time and will continue to retain that spot for a long time. None of the drivers today are in the caliber to win 7 Cup Series titles. The only driver who's young and talented enough to do it is Kyle Larson, but even he is 32 years old and has won only 1 Cup Series title. Do you think anyone on the current NASCAR grid can win 7 Cup Series titles in their career? Post your thoughts in the comments section below.